Again, dear students, this is Mr. Abdurrahman Dawi with a video session designated for grade 10 who is studying ICT subject. It's gonna be a very short video talking about the previous 8.1, talking about the physical injuries and what the ICT environment should have as a procedure regarding certain risks. So we're gonna jump into the topic quickly, so this video will be very short for you. First of all, this is the topic. It's session 1.1, talking about the physical safety inside of ICT environment. When we say ICT environment, we talk about when we are handling our daily routine, whether that in it's a school, studying computer, or in our own room doing certain things with the computer, communicating with other people, sending money, wherever it is. So let's talk about an introduction about this. As an introduction, you need to understand that every occupation around the world, they require any kind of employee to understand how to work safely using computers. This is something you cannot even work without understanding that. And there's some countries that they offer free courses for teaching their newly joined employees, even from different countries, how to use computer systems safely. And also there's a lot of regulations in many countries that is including these safety risks by details and how to avoid them as a certain procedure or like a prevention strategy. So in the next slide we will look about all these common problems and what's the associated injuries regarding these common problems or safety risks when there's like an ICT poor condition in whether that is in work or even when you're in your own room and you're not handling these you're not taking these risks seriously. So let's jump to the first thing first. Number one, we'll talk about this is all about safety risks and how to prevent them. The first safety risk that we need to discuss is the electrocution. Electrocution, basically when you are working using your computer and you get yourself electrocuted by some sort of an accident, and there's a variety of reasons for that. So one of the examples, as you can see, when you are spilling drinks or water, or even when you're touching any kind of exposed wires related to the computer, you have the chance of getting yourself electrocuted. And the next column is how to avoid that. Basically we call that prevention strategies. Number one, basically don't allow any kind of food or drink when you're using your computer. This is a very basic rule. Even when you're going into computer lab, you know that there is a big sticker or poster about that. Never eat or drink in the computer lab for this sort of safety risks. The other prevention strategy for that is to use some sort of a circuit breaker. It's the device to cut out the power immediately when there's some sort of a fault. Usually what happens is that there's like an overload because electricity went off and came back suddenly, and when that happens there's a chance that the power goes with full surge and you get yourself sometimes electrocuted because of that high voltage. So this is why the circuit breaker is important to be installed in computer labs, in schools, or even at home, to prevent you from some sort of an electrical issue because of that. The third prevention strategy to avoid electrocution is to make sure that all of the wires related to your computer, even the mouse cable, it's safely sheathed, meaning that all of the cables, there is no bare wires, everything is covered in its plastic cover and everything is safely usable. This is the third prevention. Always avoid touching any kind of bare wires. The last safety risk prevention strategy is to ensure that always you have some sort of a way to put the fire down that is caused because of the electrocution. Sometimes when you have some kind of electrical issue, it might start fire. When the fire starts, you cannot use the water-based fire extinguishers because it will conduct electricity into your body. So always keep a fire extinguisher in your home or in the ICT lab or any kind of ICT environment, and they need to have some sort of specific material. Sometimes it's some sort of a powder, or it could be a CO2 element inside of them, so you can have a dry method of putting the fire down. This is all about the safety risk number one. Number two, overloaded sockets that might lead to a fire. This is one of the things that might happen in ICT environment when we have poor establishment of power sockets. How to avoid such safety risk? Number one, always keep an eye for any kind of ventilation methods, your air conditioner, the windows open, wherever it is. Always keep the room well ventilated to prevent these equipments from overheating, because basically this fire is caused because of the overheat of the equipment, and it reaches a specific or a critical temperature and suddenly will start fire because of that. This is the first prevention strategy to avoid this safety risk. Number two, basically don't overload these power sockets beyond their limit, because sometimes these devices exceeding the limit of the power supply or the power socket, which lead to this kind of thing. So always use the power limit that is designed for that socket. Never overload. Always try to spread the devices. If you're trying to plug everything in one socket, that might be the accident that you see. The last prevention strategy for this safety risk is by reducing the voltage requirements. What is the meaning of that? Basically by being friendly to the environment, basically being socially active. Always try to use devices that is friendly to the environment, basically anything that can use very low power. LCD screens, for an example, is one of these examples for that, because LCD screens is using so little power compared to the CRT. CRT is the old-fashioned monitors, if you remember them, these devices that they have like a very big back at them. So these devices, they use a lot of electricity and they're not friendly to the environment, and the use of so much electricity can lead to these things. It's one of the risk factors for having overloaded sockets. So reduce the voltage requirement by using devices that require so little. LCD is one of the examples. This is about the safety risk number two. Let's talk about safety risk number three. Safety risk number three, talking about getting yourself damaged physically because of the overheated equipment. Okay, sometimes you're gonna touch a computer piece or a device and it has a high temperature, and this is the result, having a burn injury because of that. So we call it personal physical damage due to overheating equipment. How to avoid that? Number one, always make sure, it's always important to keep the ventilation. As you can see, ventilation. Ensure that the ICT room always properly ventilated to avoid getting these devices overheated. This is the prevention strategy number one for this safety risk. Number two, avoid overcharging your devices, whether that they are mobiles, portable computers. Always avoid overcharging, because when you overcharge these devices, the extra electricity will turn into a heat, and this heat will lead to heating the device as a whole, and without knowing or without focusing, you will find yourself touching that piece of device and getting yourself damaged. This is how to avoid as a prevention strategy number two. Prevention strategy number three, always avoid to rest your computer on your legs. We have this kind of habit here in Libya. As an example, at the winter we keep our laptop in our lap or in our legs, and we try to use the computer while it's the ventilation sinks of the device block it because of our blanket. So what happened when you're trying to leave the bed, for an example, you will not notice, and you get yourself damaged because your skin is gonna touch the overheated bottom part of the laptop, and it will lead to some sort of accident like this. So always try to avoid using your computer or leaving your computer on your legs, even if it's called laptop. Some people say, why, mister, it's called laptop, it should be okay. At the beginning of the designing these devices, they used to have so little power. Now the laptops, the newly designed laptops, they have so much power, and with this power comes overheat as a side effect. the power comes with an easily overheated chance because of these risks. So these are the prevention strategies of safety risk number 3. Let's go to the next safety risk, which is safety risk number 4, getting yourself tripped or fall because of the trailing cables or the wiring cables of the computer lab or even at your home. How to avoid falling because of these myths. As you can see, this is one of the unusual things. Never leave the cables like this. They are in a walkway and there's a high chance that you get yourself fall because of that. Number 1, always use the ducts and clips to gather the wires together. The ducts, they are the pieces of plastic that you can see at the walls in the computer lab. They carry all the cabling connections without the need of using the walkway as a path of landing or to trail these cables. So always use ducts and clips to gather all the wires, so they don't have the chance of being scattered like this and having the chance of having the safety risk as a reality. Number 2, always try to use the furniture that you have at home or even the discs that you see in the picture to hide all these cables behind. So tuck all the cables together and hide them using the furniture, and keep them away from the walkway that you see in front of you here. This is an area of walking. It's very wrong to have cables in here. So this is the tip number 2 as a prevention strategy of safety risk number 4. Safety risk, the last prevention strategy is basically start relying on the wireless connection. We try to use, right now we use the internet, and the majority of us we're using the wireless internet as a solution, which is a very good thing. It's a good habit or a good trend. It's something changing in our society. We started relying on the wires connecting and we have less wires. Most of these wires actually is the wire coming from the mouse or the keyboard. So this is one of the good things. Always try to replace the wired methods when we are in ICT environment. This is about the safety risk number 4. Let's talk about the last safety risk number 5. It's also about getting yourself injured physically, but because of having the chance of having the heavy equipments falling on your hand or on your foot. So this is the safety risk number 5. How to avoid that? Number 1, basically never place the heavy equipments where there is unstable or weak discs or shelves. Okay, always make sure that you're placing them in very strong and stable discs. This is number 1 prevention strategy. Number 2, try to make sure that you have enough space for these heavy equipments. Well, for example, if you're putting your desktop on top of a table, make sure that it has enough space and there's a very low chance that it will be at the edge of the table, and because there's a chance that you might be passing by, or even your little brother, or even the computer lab by your colleague, and there's a chance to drop these heavy devices because there's actually not enough spaces designated for them. The last prevention strategy of the safety risk is never put the equipments in any kind of place where there's a chance that it might be knocked off or pushed, basically the edge of the table. Always, it's very wrong to keep your heavy equipments on the edge of the table. So all of this considered as a prevention strategy of the safety risk number 5. Okay, this is all about 8.1, or talking about the physical injury or the physical risks that accompany the ICT environment. Thank you for viewing. If you have any kind of questions, feel free to add any kind of comments where there's the video. Take care and see you in other sessions, inshallah. Try to stay as late as you can, because I will keep uploading these videos. And sorry, pardon me for uploading very late. I have a very busy schedule, so I wish that you forgive me for this kind of low commitment. I'm your teacher, Mr. Abdurrahman. See you in other videos. Take care for now.